Hello there, thrill seekers. And before we begin, I want to say that my friend Gentos shows on Jack Haubner, as he's known, as his pen name is known, it did a really nice video about enlightenment that was partly inspired by a conversation he and I had over the emails. And so I will, if I remember how to do this, I will put a link up there to his video, and you might enjoy it. I think all of shows on Jack Haubner's videos are worth watching, but so I don't point it out every darn day when he puts out a new good one. But this one's inspired by something we talked about, so you might enjoy it if you enjoy what I've been talking about. So the thing I want to talk to you about today is discomfort. And the reason I'm going to talk to you about discomfort is because I spent the morning and yesterday morning, no, 2 days ago morning, whatever that was, Tuesday? Anyway, spent some time talking to a professor at a university in the UK about the matter of discomfort. And so Zazen is a practice which is, as my teacher used to express it, kind of the balance between comfort and discomfort. So the Zazen posture shouldn't be excruciatingly painful or painful at all. For most people, sitting in at least the Burmese posture is not painful. For a lot of people, even sitting in the half lotus or full lotus posture is not painful, and that's as it should be. If you're having actual pain during your practice, then maybe you should look at it. I used to sit in the full lotus posture when my knees were not quite ready for it. When you're sitting in the full lotus posture, it's very important that you're moving that the bend comes in your hip and not your knee. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then don't worry about it because you're probably not doing the full lotus posture, and you probably shouldn't do the full lotus posture. I do the Burmese posture myself these days, and it works out just fine. So it's one of the yoga poses. It's Padmasana is the full lotus posture, and even the half lotus or Burmese posture are ways of doing Padmasana, as I understand it, as it's been explained to me by yoga teachers. So, but it's not one of the crazy yoga postures. It's not like one of those ones where you bend your leg all the way around behind your head. My friend Matt Ryan can do those postures, and it's really impressive, but most of us can't. And you're not being asked to do a posture anything like that. You're asked to take this posture, which is in some ways fairly comfortable. The discomfort physically comes in when you are trying to hold that posture for a long time. Even 20 minutes can be very difficult because the mind is in there raging and saying, you gotta move, you gotta go do something, because that's what we're used to doing in life. We're used to, I'm doing it right now as I'm sitting. You sit there watching TV, and then you go like this, and then you like that, and then you're like this, and you're like that, like this. You're going through a number of postures, and so you get used to that as a habitual thing. And if you ask the body to just stay completely still in one posture and not change that posture, well, that's going to cause a certain amount of discomfort. And one of the beauties of Zen practice is that it allows you to work with discomfort. So one of the best things I find to do with that sort of discomfort is just bear it. The word that I learned in Japanese is gaman. And gaman is a nice word, but it means to kind of stoically bear up with something that you don't want to do. Gaman. So I gaman with that practice. I sit still even though my mind is going, move, you want to move, don't you want to scratch that thing? Scratching itches is one thing that often comes up, and it's controversial in Zen circles about whether you should scratch itches or not. I tend to go for sometimes scratch them, sometimes don't. What's interesting about itches is that a dermatologist appeared at one of my lectures that I did in Munich a few years ago, and I mentioned itches, and this dermatologist came up to me afterwards and he explained to me that itching is really a scam. Actually, this isn't the way he put it, but it's the way I translated it in my mind, which is that you have an itch. I have an itch right here, actually, and I'm going to scratch it. What happens when I scratch that itch is an itch is a low-level sort of pain, and by doing this, you spread that low level of pain out across a larger patch of skin, and by doing so, you kind of forget the initial low level pain, which is in a very specific spot. So the itching doesn't really make or the scratching, excuse me, doesn't really make the itching go away. It just spreads the feeling out over a larger period, a larger piece of landscape there on your body, and you forget about it. The more you know. I found that really fascinating. So if you let itches go, they'll almost always, not always, but almost always just give up on their own, just like they would if you scratched them. But that's not my point. My point is that discomfort is one of the things that comes up in practice. And discomfort can also be discomfort in a mental state, because after the initial physical discomfort becomes less of a problem, and the constant chattering of your mind becomes a little bit less of a problem, what tends to happen is I like the metaphor of rummaging around in an attic, and I think I actually used it a couple of days ago on this video channel. But this is what it's like. It's like you've got this attic where you've stored up all this stuff, which is your mind, and the mind starts rummaging around through it and starts presenting you with things that are emotionally uncomfortable. You'll start noticing things about yourself that you don't like. You'll also start noticing things about yourself that you like. But I think most of us, myself certainly as a great example of this, tend to pay more attention to the things we don't like. So I started seeing a lot of things about myself that I didn't like. I started seeing that there were repressed things that had somehow worked their way into my psychological makeup that I didn't like. I saw thoughts that started to come up that didn't seem to have any clear relationship with myself. And what I realized is that a lot of that something that we call self, in the sense of a personal self, not the big self that I sometimes talk about on this channel, but the personal self, is a kind of filter. So it's as if your mind is constantly producing all kinds of stuff, but you have habitually filtered out certain things that you don't like, that you know are not good, and you just kind of filter them out so habitually that you think that they're not in there. But if you do a practice like Zazen for a while, what happens is that a lot of those unknown thoughts start to surface. And for myself, after a while, at first the sensation was like having repressed thoughts that I can recognize as, oh, yeah, maybe I think that sometimes, but I repress it. And okay, there it is. And, after a few weeks or months or whatever of learning to live with that, it becomes okay. And the next level is thoughts that seem so completely unrelated to myself, to what I think of as even something I would... It's not even thoughts that I would normally not would associate with other people or something. They just seem weird, and I don't know what to make of them. And at one point, I remember having a bunch of this stuff happening, and this is when I was in Japan practicing, and thinking, oh, this must be what it's like with people with, I don't want to talk, like schizophrenia or something. I don't know much about the classifications of different mental problems that people have. I'm trying to be very PC with my wording and not offend anybody. But I had a friend I knew who had a difficult time of hearing voices. And it's a bit like that. I was going, oh, I see what he's talking about when he says he's hearing voices in his head that don't come from him. In my case, I had done enough practice that I recognized this as just another species of that sort of thought. They're just thoughts that seem so alien to what I think of as myself that the best explanation I would have been able to come up with, had I not practiced Zen for 15 years before it happened, would be that, I don't know, ghosts were inside my head or something like that, that I was getting psychic messages from other beings. There's all sorts of things that happen. But it's just a species of thought. It's just another kind of thought that comes up that you've been so, at least this is my impression of it, uh, so good at repressing or so good at filtering out that you can't associate with yourself and it seems like somebody else. So you go through that, and that is really uncomfortable. Let me tell you, to have thoughts that you can't even recognize as your own is really uncomfortable. So there's a level of discomfort. But what's interesting is this practice is a goalless practice. So you're not trying to change anything. This is why shikantaza is a bit of a tricky practice, and why after a few years of shikantaza, it's usually best to make friends with a teacher, or at least somebody who knows enough about the practice that you can talk to that person about what you're experiencing and they won't think you're a nutcase. Because all of us have these sort of experiences. And so we're letting all of that go without trying to stop it, without trying to repress it, without trying to make it go away or change it or form it into something better or anything like that. Just letting it go and letting yourself see it. And seeing that can be extremely uncomfortable. But what I've found is this discomfort is incredibly useful, because there is no level of discomfort that another person could impose upon me from outside that is any worse than what I can impose upon myself. This is what I've learned after years and years of this practice, and I had to do it a lot until I was able to see this. But what happens is that when other people try to throw you off, or put you in a bad state, or tell you negative things, or it's very difficult after a while for that stuff to have much meaning. Now, I won't say it has no meaning, because I think all of us, and it's definitely me, there are still things that can trigger me and set me off, even after almost 40 years of this practice, but not nearly, not even close to as many as used to. I used to be set off fairly easily, I think, about among people, and then I got to be normal, and now I've gotten to be a little bit maybe better than normal, as far as not being able to get set off by things that other people say. So that's the value of discomfort. So most of us want to do comfortable things and avoid uncomfortable things. I mean, I'm just as bad as anybody else. Right now, I'm outside and it's colder than it's not as bad as it was yesterday, but it's colder than I like out here, and I want to go back inside. I prefer to be inside. But the best place to do these videos is outside. I get a better picture and everything. Anyhow, the value of living through discomfort is that discomfort stops bothering you so much. And I think one of the dangers of our own society, Ziggy is digging around up there somewhere. The yard slopes up this way. The place I live is kind of on a hill, so the front yard is actually a hill. So he's up there on the hill digging around. See him? Ziggy, what are you looking for? Hey, Ziggy, what are you looking for in there? Anyway, I think I was talking about the danger of our current society, which is that it's very easy to find comfort in our society, and we are less and less able to deal with discomfort. So the kinds of things that we complain about, even my father-in-law is 75 or 6 years old, and he's from Mexico, and sometimes I'm embarrassed by the way that he is able to put up with discomforts that to me seem kind of like, I gotta fix this, So if we go back even more generations and more generations, this is why Dogen, people have often asked why Dogen in his writings never talks about pain in Zazen. And the best answer I've ever heard to this, I didn't make this up, I think Dokai Georgeson, who's a teacher in Minnesota, I think he's the one I heard this from when somebody asked him that, which is that if you think about how uncomfortable life in general was 800 years ago in rural Japan, the pain we associate with sitting in Zazen was probably so minor by comparison to what they had to deal with all the time, that it didn't seem worth writing about. That's I think probably the reason Dogen never addresses pain as an aspect of Zazen, whereas contemporary teachers often do. So going through that discomfort and forcing yourself to live with a certain amount of discomfort on a daily basis, on a regular basis, has for me been incredibly instructive. So discomfort is good. That's what I want to say. Wow, I got the title for the video right at the end. Anyway, that's my message, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to send me stuff to help my comfort, to make me more comfortable, you can go to the URL you're seeing on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main and usually only ways of making a living, so I really appreciate your support. But as always, this is offered for free, so you don't gotta donate if you don't want to donate. We will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Hey Ziggy, how you doing? You get tired of playing up there on the hill? Now you want to hang out with me down here? You want to go back inside where it's warm? He knows that phrase. He knows go back inside. Alright, we'll go back inside and we'll talk to you later. Bye.